The night I almost lost everything. I stood in the hallway of my own home, holding divorce papers in my trembling hands, listening to my husband confess something to his childhood friend that would either destroy me completely or save everything I thought was already lost. What I heard through that door changed 30 years of my life in less than 60 seconds. And I need to tell you what happened before it's too late for someone else. My name is Sarah. I'm 54 years old, and 3 weeks ago I was absolutely certain my marriage was over. Not because of screaming matches or thrown plates or dramatic scenes you see in movies. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of ending that happens when two people slowly become strangers while still sleeping in the same bed. And the worst part? I genuinely believed I was the only one suffering. I thought my husband David had simply stopped caring. I thought he'd moved on emotionally while I was left behind, invisible in my own home. I was wrong about everything. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because what I'm about to share isn't just my story. It's a mirror that might reflect something you're experiencing right now, something you haven't had the courage to face yet. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll understand why I'm grateful I stayed silent behind that door for just 5 more minutes instead of walking away. David and I met when I was 23. He was 25, working as a junior architect, and I was finishing my nursing degree. We met at a friend's barbecue on a July afternoon that smelled like charcoal and cut grass. He wasn't the loudest person there, or the most confident. He was the one sitting slightly apart from the group, sketching something in a notebook. When I asked what he was drawing, he looked up with these gentle brown eyes and said he was redesigning the host's backyard because the flow was all wrong. I fell in love with him that day, not because of grand gestures, but because he saw the world differently. He noticed things. He cared about details. He made me feel like I mattered in the way he listened, really listened, when I spoke. Our wedding was small, 28 people in my parents' backyard. David built the arch himself, spent 3 weeks making sure every joint was perfect. Our first apartment was tiny, barely 600 square feet, but we were happy. I remember coming home from 12-hour shifts at the hospital and finding him waiting with terrible homemade pasta and a smile that made everything okay. We had our daughter Emma 2 years later, then our son Jacob 3 years after that. Life became busy, beautifully chaotic. David's architecture firm started growing. My shifts at the hospital got longer. We were building something together, or at least I thought we were. We were a team managing carpools and parent-teacher conferences and mortgage payments and aging parents. We were functional, we were responsible, but somewhere in all of that, we stopped being us. It wasn't sudden. That's what made it so hard to pinpoint when things changed. There was no affair I could discover, no explosive argument that marked the end. It was more like watching color slowly drain from a photograph. Conversations became transactional. Did you pick up the dry cleaning? Can you take Jacob to soccer? Don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons Saturday. Touch became rare, then non-existent. I'd reach for his hand, and he'd already be reaching for his phone. I'd try to tell him about my day, and his eyes would glaze over. We'd sit across from each other at dinner, and the silence felt like an ocean between us. He started staying late at the office, coming home after I was already asleep. And the worst part? We never fought about it. We just quietly accepted this new distance as if it were inevitable, as if this was simply what happened to marriages after 30 years. Then Rebecca came back into our lives. She was David's friend from college, someone he'd known for over 30 years but hadn't seen much after she moved to Seattle for work. She'd recently moved back to town after her divorce, and David invited her to dinner one night, without really asking me first. I was cordial, polite, the way you are when you're too tired to object. Rebecca was beautiful in that effortless way some women are. She was confident, successful, full of energy and laughter. She and David fell into easy conversation about old memories, mutual friends. shared experiences I wasn't part of. I sat there smiling, serving food, feeling like a waitress at someone else's reunion. And then she started coming around more often. She'd stop by the house to get David's advice on redecorating her new condo. They'd go to lunch to discuss her potential business venture. She'd text him about architecture magazines and building codes and design philosophies I didn't understand. I want to be clear about something. I'm not proud of what I started thinking. Rebecca never did anything overtly inappropriate. She was always friendly to me, always respectful. But I watched my husband come alive around her in a way he hadn't been with me in years. I watched him laugh at her jokes, lean in when she spoke, check his phone constantly for her messages. I watched him care again about his appearance, start going to the gym again, buy new clothes. And I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. Not with him leaving me for her necessarily, but with me finally accepting that I was no longer the person who made him feel alive. I was just the person who was there, managing the house, paying the bills, existing in the background of his real life, the life that apparently now included Rebecca. 6 months ago, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not my closest friend. I just went alone to a tasteful office downtown and sat across from a woman named Patricia who asked me questions in a gentle voice. Why was I considering divorce? How long had I felt this way? Did I want to try counseling first? I remember sitting there, 45 minutes into explaining my marriage, and realizing I couldn't point to one specific thing David had done wrong. He hadn't cheated, as far as I knew. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't addicted to anything. He just wasn't there anymore, not emotionally, and I was so tired of feeling invisible. Patricia gave me papers to review and told me to think carefully before proceeding. I took them home and hid them in my closet behind my winter boots. Every day for weeks, I'd take them out, read through them, imagine signing them. I practiced the conversation in my head. David, I think we both know this isn't working anymore. We've grown apart. It's nobody's fault. We had a good run. Let's end this with dignity. 3 weeks ago, Rebecca invited some friends over to our house for what she called a casual women's gathering. She'd been helping David with a big project presentation and asked if she could use our living room since her place was still half furnished. I said yes because I didn't know how to say no without seeming petty. That evening, 7 women I barely knew filled my living room with wine and laughter and conversation. I played hostess for the first hour, bringing out cheese and crackers, refilling glasses, making small talk. David stayed in his study working, or at least that's what I thought. Around 9:30, I excused myself, suddenly exhausted from pretending everything was fine. I headed toward our bedroom but stopped in the hallway when I heard my name. Rebecca was talking, her voice carrying through the partially open living room door. Normally, I would have kept walking. I'm not someone who eavesdrops, but something in her tone made me freeze. She said, everyone always asks me about David, like there's something romantic there. And I just laugh because if they knew the truth, they'd understand how ridiculous that is. Another woman asked what she meant. Rebecca continued. David is completely, utterly devoted to Sarah. It's actually beautiful and a little heartbreaking to watch. Do you know why he asked me to help with his projects? Because he's been secretly taking online business courses for the past year, trying to transition from architecture to consulting so he can have a more flexible schedule. He wants to spend more time with Sarah before their kids are completely grown and gone. He's been working with me because I've done that transition already, and he needed advice. The whole time, all he talks about is Sarah, how he feels like he's failed her, how he's been so focused on providing that he forgot to be present, how he sees her exhaustion and doesn't know how to help, how he's terrified she's going to wake up one day and realize she deserves better than a husband who's been emotionally absent. I stood there in that hallway, barely breathing as Rebecca kept talking. Last week, David showed me this plan he's been working on. He's been saving money to surprise Sarah with a renewal of their vows and a trip to Italy, something she mentioned wanting to do 20 years ago. He's been distant because he's been stressed trying to make everything perfect, trying to prove he still sees her, still chooses her, still loves her the way he did 30 years ago. The man is completely in love with his wife and has no idea how to tell her because he thinks he's already lost her. Then David's voice came from somewhere near the kitchen. Quiet but clear. I haven't lost her yet, but I'm afraid I'm about to. I heard him walk into the living room. The conversation stopped. He said, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just came to say goodnight. But since everyone's here, and since Sarah can probably hear this from wherever she is because this house has terrible acoustics, I might as well say it out loud. I've been a terrible husband. Not because I don't love my wife, but because I forgot how to show it. And I'm trying to fix that, but I'm probably too late. I stepped into the doorway. Our eyes met across the room, and for the first time in years, I really saw him. Not the distant stranger I'd built up in my mind, but the man I married. Tired, scared, trying, and still there. I didn't sign those papers. Instead, we talked, really talked. For hours that night, and many nights after. We're not perfect now. We still have hard days. But we're trying together, and that has made all the difference. If you're watching this and you're where I was 3 weeks ago, standing in a hallway ready to give up, I'm asking you to wait. Wait 5 more minutes. Listen, 5 minutes longer. Because sometimes the story isn't what we think it is. Sometimes love is still there, just waiting to be seen again.